in the spring of 1980, I was 16, and I was listening to a ball game, Dodger game. Dusty Baker was at bat, and Vin Scully was calling the game. And he broke into the game to say ABC News had a special discussion, which had never happened before and has never happened since. And that's the night that the raid on Iran failed. And that's the point I knew I wanted to join the Army. So I went down and talked to the recruiter. They said, well, look, you're 16, come back in a few months. So on October 20th, I turned 17. 7-8 days later, I had enlisted.
Tell me about this, Doc.
Well, these are the miniatures that I painted. Not all of them. These are the better miniatures I painted. I've got another whole cabinet full of other miniatures. But you can see I have kind of a quirky sense of humor. I had a spider that I couldn't figure out what to do with, a little human that I had, so I just mounted him and what the hell, had fun. I'm drawn to strange creatures. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a were-sheep. You've heard of werewolves. This is a were-sheep. So be careful next time you attack a sheep. It might turn out to be a lycanthrope.
This one has nice light.
I enjoy my woodworking. It was something that I had enjoyed since elementary school. And I had taken a woodworking class in junior high, what was then junior high. And I enjoyed it then. But I really hadn't gotten into it until the late 90s. And part of that was because my older brother Jim was involved. Part of that was because I was working maintenance and having to work with wood as part of that. Not all of it, but part of it. I really wanted an outlet for my creative side. And so the woodworking kind of became natural to me. And over the past 20 years, 25 years, it's about not just developing the skills, it's about developing the taste for woods. What wood would look good and work good in a certain situation. So I've really come to enjoy that. I paint miniatures also. Now that was something I picked up in junior high as well. And it had to do with the fact that I was reading a lot of history and a lot of J.R.R. Tolkien, history and fantasy, and science fiction, Larry Niven, for instance. And I wanted to, I mean, those are things that you make up in your mind or you visualize in your mind from books. But I wanted to get my hands on kind of these things. And painting miniatures was just a kind of transition into that. And then I kind of dropped out of it after I joined the Army.
You joined the military in what age?
I joined at 17. I actually tried to join at 16, but they wouldn't talk to me at that time. I needed to have a waiver. I had to have my mother sign, and she wasn't real thrilled with it. She had wanted me to go to college straight from high school, but she signed. She was okay. But remember, this is 1980, 1981, and joining the military was not popular at the time. So most people tended to shy away from the military.
Are you the only service member in your family? Or?
No, strangely I'm not. I have two brothers. Now, I'm from a family of 7, so they're 16 years older than I am. My brother Jim joined the Air Force, and he served late 60s, early 70s. My brother John was drafted. He went to Vietnam as an infantryman and served 2 years plus time in the reserve. So actually all 3 of the men in my family served in the military.
Why the U.S. Army?
Because at one level, I had come to the conclusion, by age 16, I was following history, following politics. I had come to the conclusion that the Soviet Union was evil. Not bad, just plowed evil. It needed to be destroyed. So the question was, how could I participate in destroying that? And I came to the conclusion that the Army was the organization for me. Now, I had recruiters from the Marines and Navy call me, but I had really decided on the Army, especially after the failed raid on Iran, when I started reading about Delta Force. I mean, that's when I said, that's what I want to do. I joined as an intelligence analyst. And I did that because well, think about this in terms of ground combat. First, you have to find your enemy, then you have to fix them in place, then you can kill them. So my job as an intelligence analyst was to find the enemy. Where are they, and what do we need to kill them? And then several years later, I wound up as a 96 Foxtrot, a psychological operations specialist, which is just an intelligence analyst with a language modifier. And there I got involved in more soft things, like what is unit morale, how do we get Soviet soldiers to surrender, to not fight. But I still, in many ways, was always an intelligence analyst. So attention to detail, you're talking about finding out where they are, not assuming where they are, finding explicitly where they are so that the people who are going to drop bombs on them, drop artillery shells on them, go out and get them, they have to know very specifically where those people are, where their targets are. So it was really hammered into me from a very early date, attention to detail. You know, it's not, it can be about polishing your boots, but it also can be about doing your job. In my case, finding the opponent.
So how many years did you serve, and what did you do afterwards?
Well, I served 5 years. I had enlisted for 4, and then in the winter, early spring of 1985, I got a call from my group commander. He said, "Report to Major Richard Kurashevitz." Now, I knew Richard Kurashevitz was a Soviet analyst like me, but I didn't really know him that well. So I went up to report to him, and he said, "Look, Blodgett, I'm involved in a project, a joint civilian military project, that I think you'd be perfect for. From everything everybody's told me, you'd be perfect for. But you have to have 2 years of service left, and you've only got 1. I can't tell you what the project is, but I'll bring you on if you extend for a year." I figured, what the hell, let's try it. So I extended for a year, and it turns out the project he was talking about was a project named Touchstone, in which we at Fort Bragg were identifying Soviet units in Afghanistan, tracking them, and then telling the Mujahideen through the CIA where they were going to be, finding them. And the Mujahideen would then go out and kill them. So I had a year of doing that, and that was probably the highlight of my career. I just loved that.
For Veterans Day?
Yeah.
Anything you'd like to share?
Well, you know, for Veterans Day, I mean, one of the things that impresses me about Veterans Day, there was a time when soldiers were just ignored. After the Battle of Waterloo, for instance, the soldiers who were killed there were just left out to rot. After the flesh rotted off their bones, the farmers collected their bones, ground them up, and used them as fertilizer. I mean, soldiers, sailors just didn't matter. It's not really until World War I that common soldiers, common sailors, common airmen mattered. You know, so I think that we owe ourselves the recognition of those common soldiers, sailors, and airmen, not just the ones who died, but especially those that never came back, but also the recognition that they did these very difficult jobs, again, that require you being deployed far from your family for periods. So I would really hope that we reflect on that and how we've changed over the years, rather than, well, it's a holiday, let's have a barbecue.